Hey everybody, it's Jenny from Norman S. Wright. A couple of months ago I did a video on the refrigeration cycle and explained how the compression and expansion of the refrigerant allows you to cool your space. I want to continue on that now, and let's talk about heat pumps. Heat pumps allow you to heat and cool your space using the refrigeration cycle. So let's look at how a heat pump works. A heat pump is a device that transfers heat from one place to another. It can cool in the summer and heat in the winter thanks to a reversing valve. Let's bring up the image of the refrigeration cycle that I drew for the refrigeration cycle video. I discussed how the refrigerant moves through the components from the evaporator to the compressor to the condenser to the expansion device, and how this part of the system was the inside unit and this part of the system was the outside unit. And this is basically what happens in a heat pump in cooling. Let's move this over to the side a little bit, and let me draw these components, but just a little bit different this time. I'm going to move the evaporator over to the side so my arrows work better later, and we're going to rename it the indoor heat exchanger. Down at the bottom we're going to put the compressor, and we're also going to put the reversing valve. Over on this side, we're going to put the condenser, which we're going to rename outdoor heat exchanger. And then up top, we're going to have the expansion device. But because this is a heat pump, we're actually going to have two expansion devices. And then there'll be a way to bypass one or the other, depending on whether you're in heating or cooling, through the non-return valves. So now let's look at the refrigerant flow. Hot refrigerant comes out of the compressor. Instead of going straight to the outdoor heat exchanger, it goes through the reversing valve, which sends it to the outdoor heat exchanger. Here, just like in our image above, outside air will pass through it and will reject heat out into the outside. Now it comes up to the expansion device, and it will skip one of them through the non-return valve and go through the other device and come out as cold refrigerant, which is then fed to the indoor heat exchanger. Air passes through this, and this cools your space. From here, it leaves the indoor heat exchanger, goes back into the reversing valve, which sends it back into the compressor. This is cooling mode in a heat pump, and you can see it pretty much follows the loop that we had before. So let's move this out of the way and talk about heating mode. Now let me draw all the components again, and let's look at heating mode. So we have our indoor heat exchanger, our compressor and our reversing valve, our outdoor heat exchanger, our two expansion devices with their non-return valves. Okay, so let's start at the compressor again. Hot refrigerant comes out of the compressor and goes to the reversing valve. This time, because the system's in heating mode, the reversing valve sends the hot refrigerant to the indoor heat exchanger. Air passes through this and it heats the space. The refrigerant will leave the indoor heat exchanger and go into the expansion device. It'll go into the other one that it didn't use during cooling and then skip the one that it did use in cooling by going around the non-return valves. Refrigerant comes out of this colder and goes into the outdoor heat exchanger. Here, outside air passes through it and transfers heat to the refrigerant. From there, it leaves the outdoor heat exchanger, goes into the reversing valve, which sends it back to the compressor. And so this is how heating mode works in a heat pump. So let me bring both of these back on screen so you can see them both at the same time. Now I didn't draw it, but there's obviously a controller that controls the operation, so the heat pump knows whether it's in heating and cooling mode and which way the reversing valve should be operating. So that's the basic operation of a heat pump in heating and cooling mode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and thanks for watching.